Hey guys, welcome back to Analyzing Horror. My name's Lauren, and today we'll be talking about the seductively sadistic 80s horror classic, Hellraiser. So one day, Frank purchases a mysterious puzzle box that summons a group of otherworldly demonic beings known as Cenobites, led by one known as Pinhead. However, he somehow manages to escape Pinhead's wrath, and what's left of Frank hides out in his attic. Meanwhile, his brother and wife, Julia, move into the home, assuming that Frank left it abandoned after his disappearance. But a chance encounter in the attic between Julia and the newly resurrected Frank, who at one point had a passionate affair, leads Julia to repeatedly kill for him for blood sacrifices, to help Frank revitalize his body and escape the Cenobites and their sadistic underworld. So amazingly, I actually only watched this for the first time a couple of days ago, and I can't believe it took me this long, but I'm so glad I finally watched it. When I was younger, I saw the poster and just thought it looked too gross and gory for me at the time, but joke's on past me because I love that shit now. I also really loved how the story was structured. I think that's another thing. I thought that it was just gonna be an hour and a half of Pinhead torturing and chaining people up, but I was wrong. I actually really loved the plot line, and I really enjoyed all of the characters. In addition, all of the practical and special effects, the props, the costume design, the makeup, like this movie was outstanding. It looked amazing, and I loved that so much about it. And it's no wonder so many people love it. So fair warning, I'm going to be talking about the storyline and some spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, make sure to pause, go watch the movie, and come back afterwards. All right, let's get into my thoughts on Hellraiser. I'd like to start off by talking about performances and some of my favorite characters. First off, I absolutely loved Ashley Lawrence as Kirsty. She was just so lovable as a character, and I also found her personality to be so charming. I really loved that she was sweet, slightly innocent, but also spunky, and towards the end, she was such an incredible fighter. Like, she was so tenacious, and she easily has become one of my favorite final girls now. Also, I absolutely love her hair, and I think she's really pretty, so there's that. I also thought Claire Higgins was really great as Julia. So it's actually kind of funny. On my first watch, like I said a couple of days ago, I could not stand Julia. I hated her. But then I watched it for a second time just so that I had it fresh in my mind for this video, and I actually found her character so much more intriguing, in the sense that she starts off slightly immoral with having that affair with Frank, but as the story goes on, we witness her descend into this crazy, sadistic, remorseless murderer, all for the sake of her lover. I just found her character descent to be very interesting, especially knowing that that one bad deed, that affair, ultimately put her on this hellish path. I have to say though, her eyeshadow was beautiful. Like in every scene, it was so vibrant and colorful, and I just found myself staring at it. Also, Doug Bradley as Pinhead was outstanding. What an iconic performance. He had so many great lines, and I just loved his booming voice. We will tear your soul apart. I also really loved the Pinhead makeup, like how his face was all white and he had all of the pins in his face. Also the costume design, I just loved how elegant and gothic he looked. All the way down to the black contact lenses. Like I just thought that character design was so cool, and I thought he gave a great performance. Also, I wanted to give a quick honorable mention to Nicholas Vance as the Chatterjaw Cenobite. He just made me laugh, and in every scene that he did that, I did that with him. Okay, let's move on to the storyline and some of my favorite scenes. To start off, I really loved that the opening scene quickly established Frank's brutal and gory fate. We also immediately get introduced to the puzzle box as well as what it summons. And I like how we get our first glimpse of Pinhead and the Cenobites, as well as like all the chains around them and what they subject their victims to. I also really love that scene where Pinhead is searching through the gore to find Frank's ripped apart face, and then he puts it together on the ground like it's a little puzzle. Speaking of which, I absolutely love that the opening scene immediately demonstrates all of the practical effects and gore that are in this movie. Like the look of the hooks entering Frank's body, and again, all of the gore on the ground, as well as the ripped apart face being put together. It just immediately captivated me, and I knew I was in for something great. I also loved the look of the puzzle box itself. That was a really cool prop design. I really loved how it moved on its own and all of its different ridges and the many ways that you can manipulate it. And it also seemed slightly heavy, like kind of a metallic heft to it, and I could just feel the weight through the screen whenever someone was handling it. I also really loved the electricity-like special effects with the box as well as the Cenobites. It just further added that otherworldly feel to both the box and the Cenobites, and I just really loved that. I also enjoyed that scene where the family's moving into the house and Julie's in the attic having a memory of the affair with Frank. I just thought that scene was really steamy, and I also liked that that set up the reason why Julia does what she does for Frank later on in the movie. And then that scene where blood is spilt in the attic by the dad's hand, and then it gets sucked up into the floor floor and then Frank rebuilds himself. Like, holy hell. I absolutely loved that scene. And honestly, I think it's my favorite scene in the entire movie because of the practical effects. Like I just mentioned, the blood being sucked up into the floor was really cool. I really loved that. And that whole scene where Frank rebuilds himself, like the goopy stuff coming out of the floor and then he just like starts rebuilding himself. Like, oh my God, I was captivated and unsettled at the same time. Like I just loved that scene so much. I really loved that part where it's just goopy globbiness on the floor and then out of nowhere Frank's arms just shoot up into the air and kind of bend like insect legs. I just loved it so much. It was so fucking awesome. I also really loved the goopy first appearance of Frank, as well as after he feeds, he becomes like this muscle, skinless version of himself. I just really love both versions because you can kind of like feel him through the screen. Like I said, his first appearance is like just super goopy and just like barely formed. And then the muscle, like skinless version, he looked wet. Like it was just covered in blood and just, he looked slimy or slippery or some kind of weird wetness the entire movie. And I just found that incredibly unsettling. And I just really loved the special effects and the makeup that went into that. Also, by the way, that skinless version of him just fully set me on edge because I can't help but think how painful it would be to just blink without any skin. Like it just completely set my teeth on edge. Like that was like just, oh, like, anytime he was on screen, I was just like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. Also, I know I've mentioned this several times already, but I just have to say once more how much I loved the practical and special effects, the makeup, the gore, the costume design, the props. Like everything was exceptional and I just really loved that it added to the overall disturbing feel of the movie. Also, all those kill scenes where Julia lures random men into the attic is so brutal. Like her weapon of choice was a hammer, like Jesus. What a gnarly way to go. I also really love those scenes because you get to see Julia's slow descent into becoming a heartless murderer. I particularly love this scene right after her first kill. She's standing in front of a bathroom mirror and she's staring at herself covered in blood. I really loved that pivotal moment for her as a character, and I really liked how we got to see her shocked and scared and like taken aback by what she had just done. And then from there, we watch her slowly transition into this very evil person. And I just really loved how the movie gave us time with Julia right after her first kill, so we could see the contrast between her being shocked and just taken aback by what she had done, and then towards the end of the movie, like she couldn't care less about human life. And that aspect of the story just really works for me because I always love watching a character's twisted downward spiral in a movie, and I just really find that fascinating. And again, that's why I found Julia as a character so intriguing. Also, I had to mention the whole plot point of Frank having to feed to become whole again made me think of The Mummy, just in that the mummy had to like absorb souls or whatever so that he could go from a mummified state to being human again. I don't know, I was just thinking about it the entire second act and I just liked that they were comparable in that way. I also really love that scene where Kirsty catches on to what Julia has been doing and then she discovers Frank in the attic. So at this point in the movie, we've had a lot of character development with Kirsty, and at least for me, I really cared about her. So seeing her in danger like that truly upset me, just in the sense that I was scared for my favorite character, you know? Also, Frank telling her to come to daddy literally made my skin crawl. I also love the scene where she steals the puzzle box from Frank and then she winds up in the hospital just because she's so dazed by what just happened. And she's in her hospital bed and she begins to naively fiddle with the puzzle box. And she ends up accidentally opening up this doorway in the middle of a wall in her room. And little does she know, she just opened up the doorway to the Cenobites' underworld. So despite my screams and protests at the TV, she decides to walk down this hallway and she ends up coming across this monstrous upside down demon thing, and it immediately starts aggressively chasing her. And oh my God, did that scene genuinely freak me out. Like, holy shit. Like the way the monster looked, how it moved, how aggressively and fast it was coming after Kirsty. In addition, that hallway was so incredibly narrow and claustrophobic. Like there was nowhere to go except forward, and it was gaining on her, and just, oh my God, like I was genuinely freaked out. Like I was hyperventilating for Kirsty during that scene. I was just like, I also really loved the last 30 minutes of this movie where after Kirsty escapes the hallway, she starts bashing on the puzzle box because that's gonna make everything better. And she ends up summoning Pinhead and the Cenobites. Like I'm scared for Kirsty in this scene, but I also think it's kind of funny because she's like, it's just a puzzle box. And Pinhead is like, no, it is a means to summon us. I just love that they're having this conversation where it's like, it's just a puzzle box. Oh no, it's actually this. It's like, well shit, I didn't know. And the Cenobites are like, do you think we care that you didn't know? So Kirsty starts to desperately try to bargain with the Cenobites. Cinnabites. And she tells Pinhead that one of his victims, Frank, escaped him. And at first Pinhead is like, no one escapes me. And Julia's like, no, I saw him. I can lead you to him. And then we get that classic line where Pinhead says he wants to hear him confess himself. But if Kirsty cheats them, we'll tear your soul apart. Laughter aside, that scene gave me the chills. I just really love Pinhead. So after that, Kirsty rushes home so that she can get her dad out of the house, but it's already too late. Julia and Frank already killed him, and now Frank is wearing his skin. Like, I know logic dictates that this is just the actor with a bunch of like makeup around the seams, but man, like I just could not get the visual out of my head that a skinless dude was wearing someone else's skin, and it was just so freaky. And then chaos ramps up even further when Pinhead and the Cenobites show up, and they proceed to chain up and meat hook Frank while he's still wearing the dad's skin. Like, the effects in that scene were absolutely gnarly, especially that one scene where all of the hooks are on the side of his face and they're like pulling it and stretching it. It was so gory, so brutal, and I loved it. Then lastly, after Frank is killed, the Cenobites try to advance on Kirsty next, but she manages to successfully close the puzzle box and make the Cenobites disappear. And like I said earlier, I just absolutely loved her character. Like, she was in such a distressing and disturbing situation, but she kept fighting, she kept persevering, and I just really loved that about her, and she's easily one of my favorite final girls now. So at the very end, Kirsty escapes the house and then attempts to set the puzzle box on fire to destroy it. But out of nowhere, this creepy homeless guy that's been freaking her out throughout the movie just shows up and then turns into like this bone dragon thing, swoops into the fire, grabs the puzzle box, and then just flies away. And I really love that very, very last shot of the movie where the merchant that ultimately sold the puzzle box to Frank has the puzzle box once again and is selling it to someone else. And I just really loved how the movie went full circle with the story in that way, and I just thought it was very foreboding and ominous, and I just thought it was a great way to end this movie. All right, those are my thoughts on Hellraiser. Like I said, I absolutely loved Kirsty as a character. I thought Julia's descent into evil was very intriguing. Doug Bradley was outstanding as Pinhead, and I absolutely loved his character design with all of the makeup and like the nails on his face and his costume and all of the practical and special effects, the props, the costume design, the makeup, like everything was outstanding throughout this movie. And I just really loved how the storyline kept me fully captivated throughout the entire runtime. And while it took me a while to get to this movie, I'm so glad that I finally watched this 80s horror classic. So what did you think about it? Do you have a favorite character or a favorite scene? Also, if you've seen the entire series, which one is your favorite out of them all? Let me know in the comments. By the way, I've only seen the first 2 movies, so also let me know if you'd be interested in me maybe doing like a ranking video whenever I get around to the entire series. I've heard that some of them are interesting, so it could be kind of a fun video. Also, this is just a reminder that I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, so if you're interested in following me on those and you haven't already, the links are in my description box below. And as always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so Black Phillip knows you'd like to live deliciously. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you again very soon in the next video. Bye!